Quite honored that all of you heavies in this hospital have taken your time to come here. And a meeting like this is rather important because it will never again be held of such a meeting concerning a profession and a hospital growing because of people like yourselves. And we wanted to record this for posterity so that the people that come after us will know what you all went through in trying to build such a beautiful edifice that we now have a chance to be associated with. And again, thank you for coming. We're, as you know, taping this, and we're going to have a videotape so that everyone can review it. Dr. Jim Fox couldn't be here. He wants a tape. And so what we thought we'd start with is each of you tell who you are and how long you've been here, or something a little about yourself. We'll go around the table, and then we'll start with those of you, probably the earliest beginnings, or whatever you want to say. This is your meeting. We want you to do the talking. Tell us all the things that all the good things, the bad things, the funny things, the sad things, all the things that happened in this institution over the many years that you all have been here. So I think with those few remarks, I'd like to start. Perhaps Dr. Rainier on my left, would you be willing to start for us, Dr. Rainier?
Well, my name is Herbert D. Rainier, and I think you all know me. I came to Dayton, Ohio in 1942 in December. It was a stormy night on the 12th of December, and I looked for the individual who was supposed to come for me at the railroad station. He had been there when the train was supposed to come in and was not there when I arrived 3 hours later. So I went to the hotels and I found that they were filled, and I finally ended up in the YMCA. And the next morning I walked to the hospital and introduced myself. And as I walked into the old hospital, R.F. Dobolite was going up the stairs. Dr. Fox was standing talking to him. I introduced myself, and from there on I was introduced as an intern to the hospital.
My name is Jack Miller, and I came here just about a year before Dr. Rainier was. As a matter of fact, Dr. Charlie Moon and I were the first two interns down at the old Dayton Osteopathic Hospital. That was in 1941 that I came here. I guess my first encounter with any of the physicians was with Dr. Dobolite also. Dick was the general handyman in the hospital there. He gave the anesthetics, he did the lab work, he was the radiologist, he delivered babies, he did just about anything. And I spent a year there, and then I left Dayton and went down to Harveysburg, and was down there 2 years. Then I went into service in the Navy. When I came back, then I took my training in ear, nose, and throat with Dr. Leidy. I can remember them having the campaign to raise funds for this hospital. We even went out door to door soliciting funds, $1 or $2 at a time. I guess it didn't take too much to build this original hospital here. We came up a little short, and that's when all of the doctors came up with their pledges to put the campaign over the top. And we did get over the top and built the original building over here, which was a 50-bed hospital. Later on, they added the obstetrical portion on there. But we did have one problem. I remember we almost got in trouble. I thought we were going to lose the hospital. They were getting towels and placentas and everything like that floating down the river. And they were trying to find out where they came from, and they said that it must be Grandview. And we said no, that we incinerated most of our stuff. So one day they picked up something down in the river, and it had a towel around it, Grandview Hospital. So the jig was up there. They came back and they found out that when they built the hospital, they had crossed the sewer lines. And we were emptying all of our storm sewer into the sanitary and vice versa. But that cleared it up. They didn't find us or anything like that. I'll yield to you, Charlie.
Well, I started in here in 1939 at the old hospital.
Your name, Charlie, too.
Oh, Charlie Miller, Dr. Charlie Miller on Salem Avenue. And I opened up my office in 1939. And at that time, the old hospital had 10 beds in 10 different rooms. That was it. The operating room had an operating table in World War I. There was 6 electric light bulbs over top of the table. We soaked our gloves in alcohol to sterilize them. And the anesthetic equipment is one little outfit plus a couple cans of ether. And we kept working and building up. And then finally, at that time, we left there, we had, I think it was 43 beds. And we had a far better surgery room. And we did have a delivery room by that time. Because before that, we just delivered babies in bed. And that was the early part of my practice here. And
Could I mention one thing that we did miss? I think when we came here, there were 27 physicians altogether on the staff. I think Campbell remember that. We got a little over that now.
Leo Hursting, been here since 1912. Not the class of 1912, that's when I was born. When, if any of you all know that. I came here, we had the old DOH, as we called it, Dayton Osteopathic Hospital. And yeah, but I'll tell you, the equipment wasn't too good, but it always kept the hospital full because they only had 19 beds when I was around. And you had that 3rd floor was crowded. And I know the roof slanted down and had a bed there, and every time the guy raised his head, he'd hit the ceiling. But that didn't bother me like the service they got and all. And later on, they were going to build a new hospital, and they had a committee. They decided they didn't know how many beds they needed, and they figured on 90. And I remember Dr. Gebhardt said, well, now let's don't get too big, he said, because we got to get janitors and nurses and all that.
We'll never fill that.
He said, we'll never fill that place. Well, one long after that, we had to add on, you know, it's just like not building a house big enough, you know what I mean? That's the way it went, but it's enjoyable. And I think of 50 years, just going back and seeing the progress is made. And I wonder if today, if we'd had the privileges the men have today going into Good Sam or all these, you wonder whether there would have been an osteopathic hospital. I think it's the best thing that happened. During the war, and they wouldn't even talk, you know, MDs wouldn't talk to you in those days, wouldn't even consult with you. Had a hard time, so he just had to build something. Thank you.
Okay. And my name is Dr. Ralph Dager, and I began my practice here in 1936. It's a long time ago. I think, though, we talk about old times and what we might have endured in those early days, I think that one of the things that is outstanding in my mind is when my daughter was born. And I came in to visit my little newborn child. My wife was in bed with the baby, and she was crying. I mean, my wife was crying. And she said, look at our little baby with these old diapers and a big hole in it. And it so happened that we sent our laundry out in those days to Progressive Laundry. And they had a fire that night. And everything burned down. All the diapers and all the sheets and everything was burned. It was destroyed. So that was the best we had. We had towels that we used for diapers. And I went out and bought a couple dozen diapers and brought them in. And I'm sure they would have, but I bought the diapers, so they got the diapers to start for. And I think another time that impressed me was the time the power went out at the old hospital. The furnace went out. And Bill Knoll, who was the honcho at that time, he called him all the way to Columbus, and he sent down a portable power thing that they had a fire, they had to build a fire underneath it to furnish steam for the heat. So we had to use that for a week or so. So with all that, I think we all had good unity, we had a lot of fun, we had our disputes, but everything went well. And we're for go. All right?
I'm Don Seal. I came here in 1951. I did a residency training program
Columbus, Ohio, and spent a year in Kirksville. And I came here and joined Dr. Bradford. We've been partners for 6 or 7 years till Brad died. We've always been active on the staff. Conversation there. I think I picked it up from Brad. Went from there.
You.
My name is Carl Gephardt. I came here in 1928. I came in with Dr. Leidy. He had a general practice at that time. He was doing a little ear, nose, and throat work. And I was with him from 1928 until he left in 1930. Went to Chicago and took his work up in ear, nose, and throat, but especially the eye. When I came here, there was 9 osteopaths in the city of Dayton. Dr. Greathouse, Dr. Stout, Dr. Dill, Dr. Delatush, Dr. Custis. Anyway, I was the 10th doctor to come in here in 1928. One of you doctors was talking about the hospital, how we had 10 beds. We started out, but he left out one thing. Our scrub room was in the bathroom. And the doctors that were scrubbing, doing surgery, would be in there scrubbing, and some patient or some old man that had an enema had to expel it. He'd come in and sit down right beside you while you were scrubbing and expel that enema. And that happened day after day after day. I practiced general practice until 1945. I did delivered some babies. In 1945, I started a little bit of anesthesia. Dr. Walker was our anesthetist at that time. And they wanted me to sort of be the second one to help. Steve wasn't around. Well, all I could give was ether anesthesia. I had my internship at Delaware, and I gave the anesthetics there under Dr. Long and Dr. Baker, Dr. Baker and Dr. Long. So all I could give was ether anesthesia. And Dr. Doblite, he was also at that time was giving anesthesia, but he wanted to be a surgeon, and he took up the preceptorship in surgery. And then I got to give a few anesthetics, and we didn't have any muscle relaxing in those days. These doctors, I feel sorry for them today, the surgeons that worked at that time. They had no relaxation at all, and trying to get a gallbladder out, stuff like that was one of the hardest things in the world. Now today, with the muscle relaxants and the nectine and the sinturine that they have, why, it's an easy thing to do. But I felt sorry for Dr. Delatosh, I felt sorry for Dr. Baker and Dr. Long, working hard over these patients trying to get those gallbladders out with no relaxation at all. In 1960, I took over the anesthesia department. Dr. Walker left. And from 1960 until 1974, when I retired, I was the head of that department. I went to Leahy Clinic every fall, 11 years in a row, and watched those doctors there and give anesthesia. And I got some of my tips and ways to give anesthesia from them. And I came back and installed it in our hospital. Epidural anesthesia was the first, but I was the first one to start epidural anesthesia at our hospital, or any place in the city, as far as that was concerned. I don't know how many hundreds
epidurals I gave, and then Dr. Jaber gave them, and Dr. Moody, and Dr. Harker, so forth. Sodium pentothal was never used at our hospital until I brought it back to Leahy Clinic. I retired in 1974, soon be 18 years. Didn't seem that long. I retired the way Dr. Berger said a little while ago. I had angina. Nobody knew I had angina. And I took it upon myself to go to Houston. Well, it wasn't myself. I talked to Dr. Jones, who was a resident in anesthesia, and he took some more work at Leahy Clinic, or at DeBakey's Hospital in Houston. So I talked to him. He came here one time. I talked to him. He came back for a little visit. I talked to him about what I had. And I said, I had DeBakey look at me with somebody. So he made an appointment for me, and I went and had the examination. And they said I had to have a bypass, 3 bypasses. And I came back and I went to the hospital that morning, opened my locker and started emptying it. Moody came in, he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm quitting." That was it. I went back 2 weeks later and had the bypass. I don't know of anything else. If anybody must ask any questions, they can. I do have this, I think you'd be interested, we can pass it around. This is a picture of the, this was the first year, 1940-41, when we built the first hospital. And when they put on the addition, that is the one that I said that they'd never fill the beds. There are too many beds. You always kid me about that one. Yeah. I think most of your doctors have this picture, don't you? That was taken in 1939.
That's the luncheon club. Up at Rice.
I'm Everett Wilson, and I have no real claim to fame in this hospital except that I was the first new intern to this institution. I served Uncle Sam in the Marine Corps in World War II for about 3.5 years, and I came out of the service, finished up my training in Kansas City, and came here as an intern in 1947 and 48. I had some early impressions of this osteopathic hospital. I had written about what my future would be to Bill Knoll, who at that time was Secretary of the State for this organization, the Osteopathic Association. And he had been an ex-Marine, and he was very gracious about writing back to me in the Marine Corps. And I was impressed with Ohio as a result of this, and his attention to me. And however, I guess I was motivated by that to submit my application for internship to Columbus. And I heard from Jack Adams, Dr. Jack Adams from Dayton, instead of from Columbus. And I yet will never know how the mails crossed, but he happened to be head of the internship committee at that time. And obtaining interns right at that particular point was very difficult. And I have to believe that he was probably in Bill Knoll's office, or he was at the hospital at Doctors, where they got interns a little more easily than we did here in Dayton. And I believe he stole my application and was willing to just take anybody, take a chance with anybody, and he did with me. Well, when I came here, one of my first duties was, of course, to get acquainted with the various staff members, and all were very gracious in coming up to me and getting acquainted, except for Zimmerman. He was the last one to really want to get acquainted with me. I don't know why that was, but we became fast friends after that. One of my early duties was to be sent down the end of a long room, which not long afterwards became the obstetrical wing, of this hospital. There were only 40 beds when I came here, and 70 when I finished my internship a year later. When I walked down the hall, they told me that there was a staff doctor in the hospital. His name was Macaulay, and he was in the hospital for some reason or other. So I went down, I guess, to take a physical or history or do something. I don't remember what for him, and sitting on the end of the bed was a gorgeous blonde. And I couldn't get over the kind of attention that this man was getting. That was one of my early impressions. I had some good times and funny times in the hospital at that time. One was that you have to remember, my background was I was just fresh out of the Marine Corps, and I still had a chip on my shoulder. And at that time, there was still a lot of the aura of war hovering around everybody in American society. And there was this Dr. Dobolite, who was a surgeon, and he was very quiet. And I remember one time I was supposed to meet him in the emergency room at 8 o'clock, and I came in at about 5 minutes afterwards, and in kind of a slow, drawly way, he said, "Oversleep this morning, doctor?" And I could feel my hair bristle on my back, and I just really didn't like the kind of sarcasm that Dr. Dobolite was capable of. And every chance he had, he would give me a barb like that. And I thought to myself, I'm here to work for these men, and I'm going to bite my lip and not say a word. And I did this for about a month and a half, and finally then, somebody told me that Dr. Dobolite had had one son, and that son had gone to war, pretty much like I did, except he was on an aircraft carrier, and his job was to hail down airplanes, flag down airplanes, and one prop caught him and chewed him up. And that made me bite my lip even harder. And I did it for 6 months while that guy rode me. Now I know the only reason he rode me was I was the only guy from military background here. But at the end of 6 months, he did a 180-degree turn. And from that time on, it was almost like I was his son. That was probably one of the finest experiences I had in my internship. There was another time when down at the end of the hall, the downstairs was opened up underneath what was then the OB wing. And I walked in there one night, and 10 people had gotten enemas, but the only problem was that there was only one bathroom down at the end of the hall. And whoever it was who was giving the enemas wanted to get the job over with, and so they squirted one and another, and there were 9 women and 1 man. And he saw these half-closed wraparound garments flying down the hall to the bathroom, and he decided he's not going to take his enema, not until all those women get out of there. So he thought he was real smart at this. The only problem was all the women found out about it, and they lined the hall when he had his run to the bathroom and embarrassed the life out of him. If you go around this room, there's some really fond memories I have. I knew H.D. Rainier when we were in school together, and then I've known him, of course, and appreciated him all these years since. The thing about H.D. Rainier is that he has a memory like a computer. He used to say, we used to talk about a patient, and he'd say, "Oh yes, she was in 8A, or she was in 27B, or someplace like that." And he knows everybody's birthday and a lot of details, and whenever I still want to know anything about the rest of the staff, I usually go to her. Jack Miller was somebody that was a hail fellow well met in his younger years, and he took his residency with Dr. Leidig, and I became the second to follow him in a residency with Dr. Leidig, which at that time was in eye, ear, nose, and throat. One thing about Dr. Leidig, if you will remember, we had to live in a time that the young doctors will never appreciate because of the bias against DOs back in those days. And Dr. Leidig found a fairly liberal MD in Chicago and went there for 8 full months. And while they were scrubbing one day, the surgeon, who was a very well-known ophthalmic surgeon, MD surgeon in Chicago, turned around to Dr. Leidig and says, Arch, I found out your secret. And he found out that Dr. Leidig was a DO, which is almost the ultimate in sins. But Dr. Leidig had managed to keep that quiet for 8 months and get 8 months of excellent training until that occurred. But it made him feel so uneasy after that that he elected to leave. And Dr. Miller, when I applied and was accepted for residency, then after 6 years of practice in general practice, was kind of, for some reason or other, anxious to see what another guy would do in that residency. And we were out riding one day. I said, I'd like to learn to fly. He says, you'll have to, this is back in 1952. I said, he said, well, if you're going to learn to fly, you'll have to go to the guy that taught me. So he took me down to Neff Airport, which is a little grass strip down in where Marine Air Park is now. And I got introduced to flying, and that's been my hobby ever since this. I have some stories about flying and Jack that I could relate. We'll pass on that right now. The one thing I remember during my internship was that there was Paul Karras and myself, or Jacoby and myself.
Break for just a second.
Yes, surely.
We just have to change our video.
But that's Jacoby and yourself?
Oh yeah, in interning here, there were usually only 2 of us interning for 40 beds until there was an addition of 30 more at the end of my internship, all OB beds brought over from the other hospital. And we worked 36 hours on and off 8. And so after about 6 months, I had tonsil tags that needed to be removed, and Dr. Leidig agreed to do that under local anesthesia one day, and I had some hemorrhoids, and when I look at Ralph Dager, I remember that he took care of those the next day. This means that I had the experience within 2 days of a tonsillectomy and a rectal surgery, and I became an expert on which one hurts the worst. I found out really that the throat hurts worse than the rectum. So, but I slept for 3 days that time, so I really don't know what happened beyond that 3 days. I remember that about Ralph Dager. I remember Don Seal from the time we were in school, and he paid me one of the highest compliments he could. He was a junior or senior student, and I was a freshman, and he asked for a treatment, and I gave him a treatment. And after we were through, this is in an anatomy lab where he worked and was my mentor, and I don't want him to comment on that at all. But at any rate, he got off the table and says, that's pretty good for a freshman. And so I really felt quite good about that. There was another time that he wanted to compliment me, and that was after I had held a whole series of offices here as academy president and chief of staff, and one thing and another. And he came to me and says, Everett, how would you like to be groomed as president of the AOA? And I said, I was kind of dumb about it. It caught me completely off guard. And I said, okay, fine. So he took my name to the AOA Board of Trustees, submitted it, I guess it was the AOA Board of Trustees or some of the political men in Chicago, and submitted my name, and they said, we'd rather have you. So they selected him, and he eventually became president of the American Osteopathic Profession. I never heard about it after that. So that always kind of tickled me. I never could have been the kind of a president that he was. With Gephardt, Dr. Gephardt, I owe him a tremendous debt of gratitude, for which, of which I will never get fully paid. But the reason for that is that at the end of my internship, it was a kind of a thing back in those days in 1948, almost a sign of prestige if one of the staff members could take on another doctor. Everybody operated alone in those days, and they weren't in groups. And so I was privileged because of that particular situation to be asked by about 5 different staff members to join them in practice. And I bypassed all of those and joined Dr. Gephardt. And I was in that practice for 6 years before I left that to go into a residency. It was during that time that I had a lot of experiences with Dr. Gephardt, but probably the greatest thing I could say about him was he could take a new guy in, a young guy in, and tolerate the hell out of him. I mean, you know, there were a lot of us that were pretty obnoxious, and I'm sure I was not the least of them, but he never complained. He was always patient and long-suffering, and for that I owe him an awful lot. We enjoyed a tremendous practice, and I still feel that I do some of the things that I learned from him back in those days. I think probably that's as much as I need to say right now. There are a lot of memories that do flood to my mind with these different individuals, but that's my story.
There's so many different things happened to me through these years. I've been very fortunate
What's
in
your
that.
name? Who's speaking?
In that.
Your name?
Oh, I'm Bob Berger. I've seen 2nd Street the way a lot of you describe it, and I've seen all this building over here. And we never had any idea that Dayton Osteopathic Hospital would progress this far. I walked in the old place on 2nd Street as a green intern late in 1941, and somebody directed me down to the intern quarters, which was in the basement. Had flagstone walls and spiders, cockroaches, and all types of livestock. But when I got there, there was Dr. Jack Miller, and I'd known Dr. Miller from my college in Des Moines. He was a half year ahead of me, and so I said, "Gee, Jack, what are we supposed to do?" And he said, "Well, I don't know." He said, "Why don't you go put on some of those whites?" There were white scrub suits there, I remember. And I came back, and Jack is still reclining on the bed. And he said, I said, what do I do now? And he said, "Go ask Dobolite." And so I walked up on the nursing unit and asked for Dobolite, and the nurse said, "Well, he's down the hall there looking at a patient." And I finally found him, and this was an SMR patient who was bleeding a little. And Dobie was there with his cotton swabs and his headlight and so on. And I said, "I'm Dr. Berger, the new intern." And he said, and so I stood there and watched him for a while, and he said, finally, he said, "Watch this patient." And he turned around and walked out. That was the shortest orientation I believe that ever occurred here. But I knew what I'd better do. I can tell you some other stories about Dobie. His relaxed atmosphere. One time there was a problem in the obstetrical delivery room. A woman's anesthetic wasn't working right. I don't know whether she'd had an epidural or what she'd had, but it wasn't good. And Dr. Justin Krause was delivering the baby, and Dobie was handling the anesthesia. And Krause said he looked around and he couldn't find Dobie. And finally he looked over in the corner, and there was Dobie. He had a nail file out, and he's repairing the plug on a light cord. Krause said, I asked him, hey, aren't you supposed to be helping me? And Dobie said, you're doing all right. You're doing all right. That was his manual. In those days, we didn't have any carts with wheels on. We had the old stretcher, the two wooden handles. We used to carry our surgery patients up the front stairs on 2nd Street.
Down that way.
And we liked to have general anesthesia in those days, because Dr. Miller and I would get up there with the patient and line it up on the bed and flip the stretcher and flip the patient over in the bed. We didn't have to lift them that way. Otherwise, we had to bend down and pick them up and lift them. We got into almost serious trouble with the superintendent and nurses. There was a colored man by the name of Grover. I don't remember his last name, but Grover was a patriotic man, and we were patriotic too because the war was going on. And besides, he had insurance. The gist of the matter was that Grover had never been circumcised, and somebody told him they wouldn't take him in the army unless he was circumcised. Now, I think, I'm not going to accuse him, but I think it was Jack Miller. Anyway, we solved Grover's problem for him. The only trouble was Grover wasn't any good for about a week. And the superintendent of nurses was mad at us because she didn't have any orderly for that week's time. Those are just a few of the things that have happened. I hope you people have enjoyed these years as much as I have.
Corwin Nixon, Chairman of Grand Corps. Dr. Krause, I want to thank you for inviting me here. It's an honor to be associated with all you doctors. 51 years ago, that young man admitted me to the old hospital on 2nd Street. I had a bleeding ulcer. And there's some things happened, I'll let him tell about it later, and it happened over there. But I want to say something about Dr. Frank Delchach. One night, Dr. Young picked me up, and he had a fat kid in the back seat. There's 13 in the family, and we get up to 2nd Street. And Dr. Young said, I think he's got appendicitis. Dr. Frank looked at him and says, yes, got to take him out right away. Dr. Young says, he has no money. Well, Dr. Frank said, it won't be the first one to operate, won't be the last one. So he said to me, he says, Corwin, since it's free, the state law says you can watch it. Well, he got 2 or 3 nurses, and they scrubbed me, put the whole thing on me. I went in, I think I lasted 10 seconds. I walked out, and Dr. Walker said to me, Corwin, did you ever see a ghost walking? Go look at one. Well, later on, I've been in politics now 42 years. I did do, what you'll hear about next meeting, I did do, pay a little debt back to Grandview this past year. I got even one senator who hadn't been treated very nice. But later on, Dr. Young has taken care of me for 51 years. I was in the hospital one day up here the second time, and Dr. Frank came in. He said, I won't be in to see you tomorrow. So I got to go up and put a boat away. Well, here he was. He had to come back and take out another penny for somebody. I'll never forget, he came in and shook hands with me. He said, shake hands with me. I said, I'd be glad to. He said, that's your bill. And then 28 years ago, he called me up and said, I want you to serve on the Grandview board. Oh, I said, I lived out in Lebanon. He said, that make any difference. We had the meeting, I was thinking of the hospital now. Some of you doctors probably don't remember what was going on at that time, but I remember. You had some, well, they don't see them around here. Just gonna have, well, some of you feel some problems. Well, I'm very happy to be on that board for the last 28 years. And that young man took good care of me before he quit. He took good care of my wife over here. This doctor over here did when she was living. And I saw him over at Athens here about 2 weeks ago on Friday night, dedicating that new hall over there. I did have a small part in bringing the DO hospital into IU and changed that around over there. But I want to say one more. We had a camp. Dr. Young don't belong anymore. He's too young to associate with those older people. But we couldn't get whiskey during the war. I was working for Purvis and I didn't get the sugar. And Dr. Diltest for bringing the alcohol down to the hospital. I hope it wasn't that alcohol he's giving these people baths in. I don't know what they're talking about. And they bring this alcohol down there, and we'd make it called Panther. And I'll tell you, 3 drinks of that, and it was the best drink you ever want to taste it. So after I furnished the sugar for about 5 years, and Dr. Diltest would furnish the alcohol, they admitted me. They had to get all 12 votes. But every time Dr. Diltest showed up, we had a crowd. He'd break more dishes, he'd pick up a cup, and he'd throw it across there, he'd hit those. And another time, the chief of police, they were playing a little 5-cent poker, and he climbs up on the roof and covers the roof, and all that smoke come down. Run everybody out. And I tell you, they called me, I think they told him a little Mine River that night, but Dr. Frank was something else, and I won't speak like Dr. Dill. He didn't like, Dr. Young didn't like the way he doctored me. He got me home, he changed the medicine, some other things, but think of it, for me, having him in Nixon and being in politics 42 years, I owed all that young man right there. He's taken good care of me. I appreciate the friendship and all what you doctors have done. And I want to say, Dr. Miller, about Dr. Blair's. 35 years ago, I poured him county coroner. And Dr. Williams, how many remember Dr. Heba Williams? Now, they claim he claimed he had cancer, and I know a lot of doctors say he never had it. He shot himself on a Saturday afternoon in his office. The chief police came up and told me. So you got to get a coroner, you got to get an MD. And I said, well, there's no law against DOs, is there? So anyway, I appointed Dr. Young county coroner. The Blair brothers got a hold of my father-in-law, and they sent word to me, we're going to have Dr. Young, or I wasn't going to be around Warren County. Well, we've done a pretty good job ever since. And it's a great pleasure to be here, Dr. Krause, and thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
I'm Fred Howers. I came to Grandview in February of '53. I was the first orthopedic resident. I left the house in Portland, Oregon, and came on over here because I knew I was going to be resident. As I recall, the chief competitor was a radiologist from South Bend. But I figured I was going to get it because I had the best 4-year average at Kirksville. And I knew that was important if I received it. I have enjoyed my tenure at Grandview. Some funny things have happened. Dr. Dilatush used to pick me up every morning in front of the Far Hills Theater. And I'd come on into the hospital for one orthopedic surgery to scrub on, I'd scrub for general surgery, which I think was a definite advantage. I had enough scrubs I could have gone for general surgery if I wanted to. So combined with orthopedics and general surgery, I had all the cases I needed. My son-in-law in Houston, he's a history professor, a few years back, compiled a statistical history for some tobacco company, and he ran across an article written by Dr. Dilatush, I believe it was in 1915, about the evil effects of tobacco. So he was pretty good at prognosticating things. One thing that happened that I thought was pretty funny during my residency is when Dr. Steinecker was an intern. There was one day when there was very little surgery. Everybody was through by 9 o'clock. So we went down to the old intern's quarters, which was in east end of that red brick building, and we played poker. Well, Joe Back came in, and his face turned all colors of red, and then it turned white. And I said, Joe, pull up a chair. We got an empty seat here. And he really got white, turned around, and went left. He talked to Dr. Bradford. Bradford chastised me. He said, next time you play poker, lock the door, stupid. When I was a resident in orthopedics, one Saturday afternoon I got a call from OB. Report to OB immediately. I thought, well, it would be a hurry about seeing a club foot or something. I thought that's what it was. I went over there, and one of the staff men had a woman on the delivery table. He's dead now. And I'd never seen the cervix pull all the way out of the vagina. And there was a tear extending up. You couldn't even see the end of it. You could feel it. And there was a stream of blood running down about this big around. Well, I had delivered about 55, 60 babies a year when I was a GP at Corpus Christi. And I had seen one other unusual thing there. I saw a labial hematoma. It was the size of a grapefruit. I didn't believe it when the intern called me and said it was that big, but it was. So I went over there and I said, isn't there any OB man around? Can't get a hold of anybody. So I went ahead and sewed it up. I can recall one case that Dr. Gephardt had. I first saw this patient. Dr. Seal was consulting with me. I believe he'd done an epidural anesthetic. And for some reason, there was an area that looked like superficial necrosis, about the size of a dime or a nickel. The woman was lying there face down as I went through from one orthopedic room to the other. And then it was probably a month or 6 weeks later, Dr. Seal was out of town. He turned this patient over to me to take care of. And she had an ulcer on her back, entire width of the back. It was that big around. So I thought, gee, this sure looks like a resistant infection. So I put a chlorpactin pack on it, old Dayton solution in World War I. And the next day it was worse. So I really can't be an infection. Must be some allergy or something. Well, I had read an article about hypersensitivity angiitis. So I put her on a big dose of steroids. The next morning I came into the hospital. There was an attorney in her room taking pictures. He took her out of the hospital over to Miami Valley. And the doctor, the woman was feeling a lot better. She had been having a lot of pain, but she wasn't having any pain when she left the hospital. So the doctor wanted to know what I had done, and I told him. And I told him I thought she had a hypersensitivity angiitis. And they went ahead and continued the steroids, did a skin graft. She cleared up. Well, she filed suit. I don't think they named me. As I recall, they named you, and I think they named you too, I'm not sure. But anyway, her attorney was a friend of one of my friends. And my wife and I were playing bridge with this friend, and she said, the attorney says that he would be willing to settle the case if none of the doctors or the hospital will it for it. So I said, well, I can speak for myself. I certainly wouldn't charge her. I don't think Dr. Gephardt or Dr. Seal would either. The hospital wouldn't either. So it was agreed and it was settled. And the attorney in Columbus found out about it, and he was madder than hops. The next time I saw him, he said, That's the trouble, you doctors always trying to play lawyer. It was fun anyway.
I'm Ralph W. Young from the satellite village of Lebanon. I first became Dr. Dill Tush in 1918 at the original Dill Tush Clinic, which is the birthplace of the hospitals of this area. Their facility did major surgery in the small room. Meals were fixed in a little toilet kitchen room. They had competition and criticism from the allopaths, naturally. And one day the president of the bank, who was being hospitalized, had his private nurse. The state law being that you had to have a nurse on full duty at all times, were claiming her as their cover. The inspector came in of the allopaths and said, "You are not covered by a nurse of yours, this is a private nurse," so they closed them. And they moved to Dayton, which became the Dill Tush Dayton Osteopathic Hospital on 2nd Street, the name's original name. Shortly, it was reorganized, and so many of us were the original members and went from there. I'll speak in terms of personal contacts more. I'm the only one, I think, here who operates in the satellite area. I took the term young clinic in as much as Blue Cross had to have a contract, and for $12 a day I provide bed space, did tonsillectomies, took care of emergencies, and got the $12.
Took mine out for $35. You charge.
Well, I think we overcharged you. Corbin was one of my first patients, and he at that time was involved with Kroger stores, and we worked 6 days a week on Sundays. Once he asked me to go down and see his fiancée, who was sick in bed with tonsillitis, and I took my bag and all that goes with it, and filled him with silver nitrate, gave her some aspirin. And I said, "Cora, now, I don't know what to charge you. Do you think $2 too much?" I said, "Yes, I do." I think it's over $1. We had a very worthwhile experience through my lifetime as a general practitioner. I took care of the emergency work in that village, 75% of it for many years till Bethesda came in. I delivered about 600 babies in the clinic and about 2,400 in home and up in Dayton. I'm proud that we are the forerunners of the hospital, and that's what we did develop into. Cora and I are both proud to have been a part of the profession. Cora has been one of the biggest assets the profession has had, law-wise and legislature-wise and administrative. I'm proud to have been a part of the hospital, and thank you for asking me to come up.
Maybe we could kind of keep on with a few more anecdotes or anything that anybody wants to for another maybe 15, 20 minutes or so.
Doc, I'd like to be excused. I hate to tell you.
Thank you
got a little
thank you,
problem. I said,
Representative.
these officers 4 o'clock, see if I can help you out.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks
Mr.
a lot, Doctor. Thanks a million to all of you.
I think, though, that Dr. Krause ought to be applauded for calling this meeting to order. I think it's very thoughtful, very good.
I think Dr. Berger forgot part of that, where we used to carry these patients around on stretchers.
Yes.
This wasn't funny. Herb thinks so. But the stairway that came down from surgery on the 2nd floor went right into the lobby on the 1st floor. I think it was Charlie Moon and I were coming down there one day with the patient on the stretcher, and he rolled off and rolled down the steps, hit his head on the steel radiator that was on the landing. We had to take him back up to sew his head up. But later on, we did get a ramp on the back, and that thing had a grate about like this on it. Once in a while, that stretcher, the gurney would get loose, and down it would go until it hit the wall.
And
That was never
place
near
without
our
a ramp too.
tenure.
Yeah, that place was almost like outside. You'd almost freeze out there. But I'll never forget that patient. We tried to grab him before he slid clear off, and this is right in front of all the people in the waiting room.
Mel, for the benefit of the younger people, I think somebody ought to relate how we used to have to pay a service charge and you had to pay a certain amount. I don't remember the fees exactly, but I think the surgeons had to pay $10,000, wasn't it?
Majors were 10 and the
Yeah.
minors were 5.
Yeah.
That was an assessment, an agreement we made in order to put the campaign over the top to pay it back. That we would pay this much for each case we brought in. And the family practitioners had to pay also.
We paid $1 a day,
$1 a day.
so much per day, up to a certain amount.
Yeah.
I forget the exact amount of dollars that we did,
We
but
paid $10 a day for majors, $5 a day for minors, and $1 a day for medical case.
yeah, I thought we paid $1 a day.
I don't know who kept track of it, but
There was
somebody
a fee at the beginning too.
Yeah, there was
Or pay $1,000.
Yeah, the
Everybody paid
GPs, I think, were
Well, you had an
$1,000.
assessment of $1,000 to join the staff.
Right, we had $1,000, right?
Yeah.
I don't have to change our tape.
Hold tight, just we got one more tape change and we'll be, just wait.
Yeah, but we used to give you a little poodle.
Doesn't make a difference what you charge, it's what you get.
Where'd those 2 items at the hospital?
I can recall one patient of Morgan George. This fella had fallen in the fireplace as an infant and had thick scars on the inner side of each thigh. They were this big around, the scars. And the scars were so thick they would break down and ulcerate every little bit. And he'd spent a fortune on appointments trying to keep it cleared up. When his son was in the Navy and got out, he was a corpsman, so he'd seen what skin grafts could do. So he went to a plastic surgeon, and he wanted $3,500 in advance to do one thigh. The other thigh was going to be another $3,500 in advance. Well, this guy worked in the junkyard, $15 a week. How can you do anything like that? So Morgan sent him in to see me. I told him I'd do both of them for $1,500. And the son said, well, I'll pay it. I didn't ever get the first nickel.
I also remember that when I first came here to intern, I was, and the hospital was struggling to get along. We were the only ones for quite a number of years who did not participate in community chest. And all of the other hospitals, medical hospitals in town, were subsidized. And it's interesting that ours, even though it was not subsidized, was the only one that operated in the black. I also remember how tight the figures were in those days for us to keep it in the black, and we were charged each one $5 a month for telephone services. Such little things as that added up to keep us solvent. And I also remember one other thing. A bus line went right past the Presbyterian church down here, as it still does, I guess. And one of the ladies that worked here as a nurse was sitting behind 2 other women on that bus, and overheard one of them say to another, "There's that new osteopathic hospital up the street there. I understand that they're rubbing doctors, and that they deliver babies. I guess they rub them out."
Now,
Yes, yes.
I want Dr. Wilson to tell you a story about Justin Krause.
Oh.
He was, I think you were, you was taking care of this patient on Fresh Street there,
Yeah.
and you had Justin, well, you went away and you had Justin cover you. I'll pick it up from there.
This was a man and his wife who came from down in Kentucky, and she was a pretty thing, but always enjoyed, I think her husband must have babied her a lot, but she was she liked to enjoy her illness, and so I had told Justin Krause that I was going out of town and would he cover me? Yes. And I told him that if his lady called, she really would do better if she had a smack on the butt than because she was just a hypochondriac. So he got a house call over there and proceeded to use that therapy. He slapped her on the butt, and her husband got so mad, and she came right up out of that bed, and both of them took after her. He grabbed his bed, ran out of the house and up the street.
And I think maybe one reason the hospital was operating in the black was, was when I was interning, our salary was $10 a month, of which they held $5 out. So when we finished, we could buy our car and our office equipment and all that.
And they took out $3 for Blue Cross.
That's right. Then Dr. Berger comes along and he got a 50% increase.
No, I didn't.
Didn't you? I thought you got 15. Oh, somewhere along the line they went up to 15. Big deal.
I got $5 a month too out in Kansas.
5.
$5 a month.
That's all they were giving us. I don't know whether we even got the $60.
25?
Yeah, 25 and $25.
I got 10.
That's back when
Oh,
I
no,
was
I got
$50.
$50 a month. The rest, as an intern, I got 25.
Ralph, to the Corwin, forget the last name of that Panther stuff that Dilthuis made. He didn't want that on tape, did he?
Well, we have the feminine gender with us.
Oh, that's right. She'd know what that was.
I don't know how many of you fellows have heard this story or not. This is a story Mary Theodoris told me. That she had met this man that was active on the original hospital building campaign back in the, when was it, 41, 40?
41.
Yeah. Anyway, he is supposed to have said, asked the man to contribute to the building fund, and he agreed to, and he brought in a check for $500, and it was Orville Wright. And they thanked him. Gee, Mr. Wright, that's nice. He said, "This represents the amount Miami Valley charged me last week for nothing." And apparently he was mad at Miami Valley for some reason. But it's interesting that the Wrights had a contact with our hospital. Did you ever hear that, Kevin? No, I've got to get the facts from Mary.
Back 48.
How about you get a free ticket for parking
Free ticket for parking?
up in your garage?
Oh,
It'll cost you $5.
I'll get you one.
We'll get
Free.
you one.
I'll get you.
We'll get you one.
Oh, I hate to lose that $1.
You worked all these years for it, huh?
Don't you have a plastic card?
Medicare.
That'll work. Try it, it might work.
Well, gosh, we appreciate all of your coming, and it's been very enjoyable, and we will make a tape of this, and we all have the interest of Grandview at heart, and I think this is a wonderful start. Thanks again for coming.
A while ago, somebody was talking about the number of people on the staff. You know, we have over 250 staff now.
There's only 7.
How many are in the state, by the way? How many?
Let's
DOs
meet again in 10
the
years.
state?
Okay, well, I would like to have another meeting where we'll get some other guys. I didn't want to have it too big so that we can, you know, everybody can
We'll
have something
remember
to
you,
say.
Ralph.
We plan to invite you.
Well, I don't know whether I can get out of the office or not.
Okay, because there's 18 people waiting for you in the waiting room, right?
We can send a wheelchair down.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, gee, yeah, we need to get a photograph. I'm sorry. Can we? Yeah.
Ready to leave now?
Yeah, yeah.